Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio. We're live at European Utility Week. I'm Rose and I'm joined now by Meri Braziel, Managing Director for Europe, Middle East and Africa at Trilliant. Thank you for joining us, Meri.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I know you've recently launched an updated version of your smart communications platform, and I was just interested to know where you're seeing the most use cases for it. Whether smart cities or smart grid?
It absolutely depends on per customer what they're looking for. The nice thing from our perspective with a communications platform, as long as the overall platform is there, you can connect almost anything to it. As you know, when they're talking about IoT and billions of devices will have sensors in them. So our philosophy is, and you can't predict where it's going to go, but the reality is there's always going to be new applications coming in. I'm actually surprised every day by something else that has thought to be connected, and it makes perfect sense. So we're seeing both. We're seeing demand both on the grid side. We're also seeing it in smart cities, whether they're adding street lights, that you're able now to dim and change and save money by knowing what is happening to these various devices. So I think we're just at the start of what we're going to see. We can't even imagine potentially in 5 years.
It's quite exciting, isn't
all
it?
the things. It absolutely is, and also it ties into the data aspect of it. Turning things into smart things that they can actually tell you. It's a bit almost artificial intelligence and futuristic, but that's the reality. They can tell you, is their battery running down, or, are they experiencing, something that was an anomaly, and it sends an information alert, etc. So I just think we're at the beginnings of where we're headed with these communications platforms.
So in terms of smart cities, you mentioned lighting as one application.
Yes.
What other kind of applications are you seeing?
Traffic light control. There's a whole transport sort of overlay looking at, how can you control flows of traffic through a city. CCTV obviously has been done before, in historical networks, but we're seeing the integration more and more, that as a camera senses something's changing, they can change the street lights. And it is about turning everything almost a smart grid. If you think about it, almost everything can become interrelated.
Yeah. What about security? Is that, I know that's something that...
Yeah, absolutely.
More front of mind.
It does. And we're just having a discussion about this, about what needs to be secure. I mean, for example, I don't know if people realize they put sensors now in your shoes when they're manufactured. So you can track, a shoe that was manufactured somewhere in the Far East, and it goes on a container ship, and you can track it all the way around now and know where it's ended up, and if you happen to sell those shoes to somebody else. And I mean, it's amazing what can be connected. Now, do you care if your shoe is secure or not? I don't know. I do think there's a certain layer, but security, absolutely. Anytime there's data and consumer, privacy, etc. Obviously, anything that is a transaction and monetary, you absolutely need the security level. So it's an important overlay, and I think you have to assume it is there. I can't imagine a network with no security.
Yeah. You mentioned you had some exciting launch news this week. Perhaps you can just tell us a bit more about that.
Well, we've been working in the UK for several years with many of the big 6 retailers to roll out smart metering. And we're very proud of the fact that we've now passed 4 million devices running on our network. Obviously that hasn't happened overnight, but we've been building, and every month we're adding more and more, working with our partners. So we're very pleased just to show that a system can scale. It's one thing to be able to deploy a network and have a few thousand in a pilot, or then 10,000. But when you get millions, you're dealing with a lot of information at that point. And actually the next level we're moving on to is analytics. what can you do with the information that we're generating.
So those 4 million are now online?
Yes,
They're
absolutely. Yes, that includes gas meters, electric meters, and the in-home display units as well.
And the data, obviously there was a delay with the kind of processing centre, and what's the kind of latest with that?
That actually, there was go live last week, so that's happening, and it will be progressing, and I think it will, as we see things evolve as they do, where we've come from in the last 5 years, we keep changing and evolving and making sure everything works more efficiently.
And do you feel the UK approach has been a good one?
I think it fit the UK market because of the way the regulators had structured the market. So I think there are lessons always to be learned. Nothing's perfect, and there's some good aspects of it. There's some things that potentially will change over time. But it's a working system. So I think that's the important thing. It clearly is providing what's needed right now. And it's been proven you have much more engaged customers. The churn is lower. So, there are a lot of benefits to being able to roll out and deploy a smart metering system.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously cover EMEA. What other projects are you working on in that region?
Yeah, we're working on quite a few in the Middle East right now. The Middle East has really we've seen a lot of activity moving, almost leapfrogging, I think, technology. And what's interesting in the Middle East, of course, is by adding not just the electricity and the gas meters, but water meters.
Yes,
which
seems to be a big thing.
Very interesting, and applications and how you can turn water meters now smart as well. So we're seeing quite a few dynamic innovations happening.
Are utilities seeing the benefit of planning water and electricity meter rollouts at the same time? The actual sort of cost benefit of
that's
running
absolutely.
the same off
It
one
makes
platform.
sense. Why would you need to from a communication standpoint? You don't want to have a proprietary system just for water, a proprietary system for electricity. Adding that level of complexity and cost, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
that's true. Very good point.
So just thinking more about Europe and this kind of rush to meet the 2020 deadline, from your observations, how optimistic are you that will happen?
Do you know, I think that what's important, I think, is to get the customers engaged. It's one thing to say, we will do this, but consumers themselves have to want to do it. You don't want people kicking and screaming saying, no, I don't want this. And I think that's what the UK has done very well. They've run a very good marketing campaign. I don't know if you've heard about Gas and Lecky. And Sir Bob Geldorf did the voiceovers and everything.
Yeah, I think they even had made an orchestra from analog meters.
Right.
So they've been quite creative
and so it has captured the imagination, and it takes time. I think over a 2-year period, they've now gotten awareness up every quarter now. But it takes you can't just do it once. It has to be an ongoing approach to be able, as I said, to raise awareness of why somebody should want to do it and what's important to them. So I think, and I don't know how the various countries at this point are going to take that sort of messaging out to people.
The actual customer and
I
getting
think that's important. You can't forget, it's one thing we get tied up in the technology and discuss how we're going to do something and implement, and forget about the actual end user who's going to see it and want to use it. But as I said, what we've seen in the UK, customers are much more engaged and much more aware. Without having information about your energy usage, people will say, "Oh, I saw when I turned the kettle on, the usage went up," and so I think it's that cause and effect that they're now aware of the information, and they'll change behaviors over time because of that.
So now the infrastructure's coming into place. What other possibilities are there in the UK for that infrastructure?
Very good question, and I think there's quite a bit of conversation. What can you do with that? I mean, in the UK, it's considered to be critical national infrastructure. So obviously, there's a very heightened, awareness of security. So I think we'll see what gets added on, but the discussions are happening right now.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's the exciting part, isn't it?
Yeah.
You put something in, it enables
right.
many other things that
That's
perhaps
exactly
we don't
right.
even know yet.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah, Meri, thank you for joining us. Thanks for your
thank you.
insights.
Okay.
And you can watch more of our videos from European Utility Week on the YouTube channel. Thanks.